But Moy, if I'm not mistaken, you told me Kuda said you'd get money from the government, isn't it? And I think it's the government responsibility because this whole sanctions issue is not about Kuda. But Moy, if I'm not mistaken, you told me Kuda said you'd get money from the government, isn't it? And I think it's the government responsibility because this whole sanctions issue is not about Kuda. And I think the mistake we're making it a Kuda thing because Kuda has somehow volunteered because it's affected. We're not Billy Rottenberg. They're on sanctions. They went and cleared these themselves and so forth. But it's a national crisis. It's a national issue in terms of sanctions. So where is the money government should be giving you? Don't you think you should be pursuing this more with government rather than Kuda an individual? I'm just thinking after the discussion that we had in the car, remember? Because we start blaming Kuda not in the papi pama sanctions. He had already affected and so forth. Why don't we push government on this? Why don't we speak to the Minister of Finance, who has the money to push this? This way I think it's important for you to lead this and to go as far as His Excellency. Say, His Excellency, this is what we're doing. The country is suffering. Okay, they give money to lobbyists, but lobbyists have done nothing. This way you're coming. So let's make it a Zimbabwean issue which the Zimbabwean government must deal with. If the government has no faith in it, tinosiana nazo. You see, because what you have a situation where you who have your name soiled, your lawyer soiled, and so forth. Yet at the end of the day, Kuda does not have to deal with it. You can leave it alone, already is on sanctions and so forth. And what does he need? The very same country that he supports, it's not supporting him. It's individuals supporting him. It has to be a national issue, which then you guys are running with it and so forth. Kubira Kudara, I agree, you've been dealing with this sanctions issue and so forth, defending the sovereignty of this country, the business people in this country and so forth. But to be honest with you, I think let's push it to government level. I think you need to engage Webster Shamu, okay, and the Foreign Affairs Minister. He is the chairperson for the Foreign Affairs thing, and go before them, even write to the committee. Yeah, in fact, that's a good one. Committee of Foreign Affairs, we want to appear before you and talk about sanctions. They will support you and say, we need money to go out there. That's a good one. I can tell you that they will support you and money will be availed. Because this is what we have done. We need to do this and that. Write to the parliamentary committee, write to the clerk and say, this is what we've been doing. We're doing this for the nation and so forth. We don't believe my sanctions are imposed on Manakudawana Junior and so forth. Because tomorrow is somebody. It's people who are suffering. They will never suffer. It's people who work for them who suffer, companies who suffer, and so forth. That's my thinking as well.
No, Temba. Kuda should never... No, Mzukuru. It's very important for you to listen to the messages that I've sent you so that you understand who is involved, who made assurances, and who didn't, right? And that's why I'm making all these messages. I know that it's a lot of information, but I'm making all these messages so that you understand where Kuda comes in. Kuda brought himself into this issue. We didn't go to Kuda. The government didn't go to Kuda. Kuda came in and made contact with me. JR came in and made contact with me. And they said that I should run with this case. It is not the government that did that. It is Kuda who did that. It is Kuda and JR who contacted me a day or two after the special rapporteur and said I should go to court. It is Kuda 2 months later who said I must come to Harare. It is Kuda who paid for my ticket to fly to Harare so that we talk specifically about the fact that I must launch this thing, we must undertake this legal case. Even though Linus Mapfumo and the DG might have been pushing with Simba, might have leaked information to the media, but at the end of the day, the person who got in touch with me and spoke to me directly about it, put me up in a hotel and said, okay, let's do this thing. It was Kuda. It was Kuda who said, start the case. It was Kuda who then brought a ticket for me and the advocate to go to Harare once again and for the advocate and me to stay in Harare for 2 months for the advocate and for me to stay in Harare for 6 months. It was Kuda who made the promise that he's going to get us the evidence that we need. It was Kuda who said, I am going to go to the DG and the committee that we sit on and get you this money. So it's important for you to understand that, Shumba. Otherwise, if you don't understand how this thing started, then even your process of mediating here will not be helpful because you don't understand the inception. So Kuda and I sat and made an agreement. Kuda said, I want you to pay your debts. I want you to get rid of your debts. I want you to focus on this fight. What fight was he talking about? The fight against sanctions. I want you to focus on this fight against sanctions for the nation of Zimbabwe. Not for you, not for me, but for Zimbabwe. Because we want these sanctions to be removed of Zimbabweans. That's Kuda's undertaking. I will give you the money to start the fight, but I'm not going to give you all the money because I don't want it to look like it's my fight. So I'm going to make sure that I will get you, not you will get from government, I will get you from government the money that is in a kitty of 56 million that sits with the DG and I sit on that committee. We will get you that money. That's Kuda. I will get you into the offices and the people you need to talk to get evidence. He is making those undertakings. I didn't ask him to make those undertakings. I didn't know Kuda. He contacted me to tell me that I want to help you through this process so that we help Zimbabwe. So it's very important. We can't exonerate him from that, Shumba, because if he hadn't come to me, I would have continued to work with the people I was working with at the pace that I was working with, and we would have been able to make a decision whether we have the resources or not, and would have decided whether to do the case or not. Had we continued with Mapfumo and the CIO, would have seen where it would have led us after they'd leaked the information, Simba and Mapfumo. But Kuda came in. Junior came in. Junior said, let's go to court. I will find you the money. Kuda invited me a month or two later and said the same thing. And then they gave me mandates. Win the court of public opinion, right? Undertake the legal fight. Kuda's name was in the papers of the court by the banks. We had to give him that information. He was supposed to give us affidavits to answer. You understand? So it's important, it's so important, Shumba, for you to follow the line of events. And remember, when we then went to the DG said, the president said, go to Kuda. So Kuda and I have got an agreement separate to government. Whether he's acting on behalf of government, whether he's acting on behalf of the president, we can only make inferences from what it is that is being said. When Kuda called me in September or November, when you spoke to him, he said, I will give you what I promised. And I will give you what I owe you. He didn't say go to government. Because had he said go to government, I said, why did you come to me? Why did you make us start a process if you knew that you don't want to do this process, government must do it? Why did you take it upon yourself to be the sponsor of this process? So we can't exonerate Kuda because he made an agreement with me. He approached me. I didn't know Kuda. I didn't have his numbers. I never asked him to help us. He took it upon himself to come to me. So we can't now say all of a sudden when it suits Kuda, yes, he can just walk away. And then what? Who made me go to start this issue? Who gave me the assurances that I can start this issue?
Muri yeZimbabwe ndofunga tiri kunzwa ndi varutendo Matinyarare na vatemba Mliswa.
Okay, so before we start, just to reconfirm for those who are just walking in, this is the press conference, the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission press conference on the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. So I will take the opportunity to invite the chairperson to guide us and proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very warm welcome to all of you, our guests, stakeholders, that is, who assist in disseminating information and helping Zimbabwe access their right to freedom of information and access to it. I thank you for your interest in the work of the Commission and the subject matter at hand. As you will know, the Zimbabwe Human Rights is established by the Constitution of Zimbabwe in Chapter 12 as one of the originally 5 institutions meant to support democracy and constitutionalism. And the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission doing that from a human rights and an administrative justice perspective. Our mandate is to therefore generally promote democracy and constitutionalism from a human rights, a bifocal human rights and administrative justice lens. And in doing so, we monitor the human rights situation, we promote human rights. We also have the mandate to investigate where they are of our own volition or through reports, violations of human rights and administrative justice. And we also seek to secure appropriate redress, and we are also mandated to, empowered by the Constitution to direct the Commissioner General of the Police to investigate criminal violations of human rights. And we also are also enjoined by the Constitution to advise Parliament on how human rights can be better protected. This is has therefore conducted an analysis of the Constitution Amendment Bill number 3 of 2020. The Commission's assessment examines the bill's provisions against established human rights principles and standards, both domestic, that is our own constitution that creates the commission, and in terms of which this amendment is seeking to be done, as well as international human rights standards. Because, as you are aware, Zimbabwe is a member of the Community of Nations. It's a member of the United Nations, which is a robust human rights framework, as well as a member of the African Union, which itself is an African Commission on Human and People's Rights. In doing this, the Commission is fulfilling its role, which I have explained already as to what it is that we do and how we do our work. I will therefore proceed to highlight some of the key points of the assessment. Please note that what I'm presenting here is highlights of the analysis of the Commission, of the Commission of the bill. That analysis that is detailed and complete will be available. And we are also going to present that detailed analysis to submit it to Parliament, because the Commission is also entitled, like every Zimbabwean, to also submit its views to Parliament when any legislation is being done. But we do so from the constitutional responsibility that we have to promote human rights and constitutionalism. The first part of the analysis that the Commission conducted pertains to Clause 2 of the bill, which proposes to transfer voter registration functions, compiling the voters' roll, and maintaining registers from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which is one of the Chapter 12 institutions, alongside us to protect, that are meant to protect democracy and constitutionalism, and transferring those functions to the Registrar General. The Commission notes that that transfer of registration may have the advantage of administrative efficiency, because the Registrar General is the one that registers all people in Zimbabwe. The Registrar General already manages several records such as births, deaths, and national identity documents, and therefore consolidating voter registration under the Registrar General's office could streamline processes and reduce duplication. This centralization may improve data accuracy, as updates to several records, such as deaths of persons, can be reflected more quickly on the voter's roll. A major concern, however, is the potential compromise of independence of the voter registration function. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is designed as an autonomous electoral body, whereas the Registrar General operates under executive control. Shifting responsibilities could therefore undermine impartiality and raise fears of political interference. Of further concern is also that Zimbabwe migrated to a polling station-based voters' roll procedure, meaning that a Zimbabwean can only register to vote for a particular polling station and can only therefore be registered for a particular polling station. Now, it is in terms of the laws that are already present that are sought to be amended. It is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission that designates what a polling station is. And when it migrated to the biometric, the new biometric voters roll that was created, it did so to fulfill that particular process. What stands to question and wonder is how this particular proposed migration of the registration by the Registrar General of Voters for a polling station-based voters roll will pan out, because in the bill itself there is silence on how the mechanics of that will happen, whether the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission will sit with the Registrar General to apportion voters to particular polling stations, whether they will have to work together, or whether the polling station-based voters roll approach would be abandoned. That particular issue is also an issue that is not appearing from the bill, and that is cause for concern, and that may, if it is not addressed, generate disputes and suspicion and mistrust in the voter registration system, and also particularly the issue of the whole, the biometric voters roll equipment that was being conducted as to will it move to the Registrar General, or will it stay with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission? Those are issues that the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission notes are potential issues of that need attention, that if they are not addressed, they may cause problems and disputes. The analysis of the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission proceeds to clause 3, which seeks to change the selection of the president from the general electorate to parliament, by introducing a parliamentary method of selecting the president. And this, the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission notes, represents a significant constitutional development in Zimbabwe's governance framework. The Commission notes that the removal of direct electoral participation without enhancing the secrecy of the ballot that voters are presently entitled to stabilizes governance, but risks alienating the electorate and weakening the principle of popular sovereignty. And it brings in the sections of the Constitution that are in section in the values and principles of the Constitution that pertain to, I believe it's section 3 of the Constitution that sets out the values and principles, founding values and principles of Zimbabwe. That is particularly section 3, subsection 2, that pertains to the principles of good governance, which includes an electoral system, section 3, subsection 2, paragraph B, which entrenches an electoral system based on 1, universal adult suffrage, and 2, equality of votes, and subsection 3, adequate representation of the electorate. The Commission also notes that removing the electorate from directly voting for the president risks creating a democratic deficit, as citizens lose a direct voice in choosing the head of state, and this may diminish popular sovereignty and could weaken public trust in institutions. But this, of course, can be remedied depending on how that is actually done and conducted. But the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission points out possible problems that may arise from that. The Commission's analysis also attended to the next amendment, that is the proposed 7-year presidential term. The proposal to extend the presidential term from 5 to 7 years is contemplated by sections 95, 143, and 158, again presents a significant constitutional reform. The extension of the presidential term has been proposed in terms of the bill and its memorandum for the promotion of stability and long-term planning, reduce electoral volatility, and continuity in developmental projects. In addition, less frequent elections may mitigate divisive cycles and foster calmer policy making in terms of the mischief that the bill is seeking to remedy. The Commission, however, knows that longer terms reduce opportunities for citizens to hold leaders accountable and may diminish responsiveness to public concerns. The Constitution, which is rooted in the sovereignty of the people, demands that reforms respect both its letter and spirit. The dual requirement of parliamentary amendment and referendum is therefore crucial to ensure legitimacy and prevent perceptions of unilateral executive consolidation. Please allow me to also refer to an issue that also I admitted in the earlier issue around the parliamentary selection of the president. The Commission notes that it is encouraging that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is envisaged to play a role in that election in Parliament. That the bill proposes that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission will conduct the election of the president in Parliament, which is recommended and which the Commission finds a positive step. But the Commission also notes that there are two possible administrators of the election. It is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, or I quote, a designated judge. The Commission notes that the bill does not explain two things. That is, one, either what criteria will be used to determine whether it is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission or whether it is a designated judge that will conduct that election. And secondly, the bill also, we note with concern, omits also to indicate the criteria that would be utilized in designating the judge who would be able to conduct the poll in Parliament of the president, of the members of Parliament. And that is an issue that the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission notes is in need of attention, because democratic safeguards and transparency are required in order for that process to be adjudged as of integrity and to continue holding the public trust. Ladies and gentlemen, the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission proceeded to analyze the next proposal in the bill. That is that of changing the way that the Senate is configured. And this amendment proposes to allow the President to appoint 10 senators, which would raise the total number of senators to 90. Through this provision, the President will appoint individuals with specialized knowledge, which will see the Senate benefit from enhanced technical capacity. The Commission notes that this expertise that is envisaged to be brought in by the 10 senators to be appointed by the presidency will improve legislative scrutiny, policy development, and oversight of the executive. However, the Commission is concerned about the gender parity implications of such an appointment when it is not accompanied by any rider in terms of Section 17 of the Constitution that provides that the state shall take all measures, legislative and otherwise, to ensure that there are at least 50% of women represented in appointed and elected position. Without such a rider, this may very well undermine the women's rights in the Constitution. Will further decline in its approximation of gender equality, because if you notice that in the National Assembly, the numbers of women who are members of that assembly are continuing to decline, and those are human rights issues that the Commission is concerned about. The Commission, ladies and gentlemen, proceeded to also examine and analyze the clause that I have mentioned earlier that proposes to hive off the delimitation function from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission By creating a specialized body, and the amendment seeks to, the Commission knows that the amendment seeks to promote good governance, institutional integrity, and greater confidence in the fairness of electoral processes. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission notes that electoral boundary drawing is a highly technical and politically sensitive exercise, requiring impartiality, demographic expertise, and transparency. While the establishment of the Zimbabwe Electoral Delimitation Commission has the potential to enhance transparency, technical competence, and institutional integrity in electoral boundary management, strong safeguards against politicization and duplication are necessary, in the opinion of the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission. The Commission also notes that while these competences are important, there could be a debate as to whether those competencies should be at a Commission policy level or should be included in the technical, in the people who actually work in a commission, the technical people, or whether the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission will not also even have commissioners who have cartographic experience or demographic experience among them, and then strengthen the secretariat that way. Those are aspects of the analysis that are food for thought for the drafters from the Commission. The Commission knows that the success of the proposed Commission will depend on the robustness of its independence and the clarity of its mandate. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission proceeds to also analyze the provision pertaining to the expansion of the mandate of that is the jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court to add to it jurisdiction of matters of public importance in addition to constitutional disputes that it already has. The Commission notes that the clause providing for the Constitutional Court to hear any matter on a point of law of public importance marks a significant expansion of its jurisdiction, thus enhancing access to justice, which the Commission commends. While the amendment enhances access to justice and strengthens the court's role as a guardian of the rule of law, it also raises concerns about efficiency, impartiality, and institutional balance. The Commission is of the respectful view that the reform should be supported by clear procedural safeguards to regulate what constitutes matters of public importance, ensuring that the court's expanded jurisdiction does judicial integrity and the effective functioning of Zimbabwe's legal system. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission proceeded to also analyze with its human rights and administrative justice lens the provision pertaining to changing the way that judicial appointments, that is judges of courts, are appointed. The Commission notes that a new provision for the appointment of judges after consultation with the Judicial Service Commission represents a significant of public interview was clearly designed to enhance transparency, democratic participation, and public confidence in the judiciary by ensuring that appointments were not solely at the discretion of the executive. I will just remark as a lawyer that the system of appointing judges in the open way would also allow lawyers that whose names we might not know, but who qualify to be judges, who have no names, to also put their hat in the ring by nominating themselves or by being nominated by others from across the country, provided that they meet the mandatory threshold for judges. This is what this system has been like. So, however, the proposed amendment would shorten the appointment process, avoiding delays associated with lengthy public interviews and procedural requirements. It may also allow the President to consider broader factors such as diversity, regional balance, or specialized expertise, while still benefiting from the advisory input of the Judicial Service Commission. The Commission, however, notes that such an amendment would simultaneously risk eroding the safeguards of transparency, merit, discretion, such as clear criteria for appointments, published reasons for selections, and continued oversight by the Judicial Service Commission, and still an avenue for those Zimbabweans who meet the criteria, who are not, who would not ordinarily be seen or be able to access the process, to be able to also access the process and to become judges from anywhere. The Commission then turns its attention to the clause pertaining to traditional leaders and partisan politics, which is the clause that proposes to repeal Section 281, subsection 2 of the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, you will note that Section 281, subsection 2 of the Constitution provides presently that traditional leaders may not be members or office bearers of a political party. They may not act in a partisan manner. They may not further or hinder the political interests of any party, and they may not violate the human rights of any. And the amendment proposes to be addressed by the amendment to remove the bill is so that the human rights, the political rights of traditional leaders are not violated by them being prohibited by the Constitution from this clause is passed, it would effectively allow traditional leaders to engage in unlimited political instead of being regulated by an Act of Parliament. However, what stands also to reason from the drafters is that while the amendment proposes to repeal subsection 2, indicating that an Act of Parliament the conduct of traditional leaders, and so it is interesting that there doesn't appear to be anything really new that has been brought in, but the fact of the matter is that the Act of Parliament regulating the conduct doesn't seem to quite be in place, which is what is needed. The Commission notes that traditional leaders hold authority rooted in custom. Chiefs are expected to serve all members of their communities impartially, but political alignment could alienate sections of their community constituencies. Entrenching ruling party dominance in rural areas, raising concerns about fairness in elections and the independence of institutions. Transferring regulation to an Act of Parliament also risks weakening constitutional safeguards, such as parliamentary majorities could craft codes of conduct that favor political expediency rather than impartiality. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, as ladies and gentlemen may know, conducts, as I have indicated below, in one of its functions, we conduct investigations into violations of human rights. And the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission has over the years received and continues to receive complaints from the Zimbabwean public about traditional leaders that have continuously, because the commission is an evidence-based institution. We actually find out what these constitutional principles of being non-partisan, so that the institution of traditional leadership continues to be respected in terms of our traditions and service.